Well, well, well. Let's see what qualifying brings us, shall we? Welcome to the watch-along for the Austrian Grand Prix qualifying in 2025. And as you can see, the order right now, not the lap times, but the order was as follows. Norris, Piastri, Verstappen, the top three. I reckon that's the qualifying order. I think it's going to be Leclerc in P4 and it's going to be Russell in P5. I reckon they pit Hamilton, then Antonelli. Other than that, I'm not entirely sure where it's going to be. To be honest, for a period of practice 3, we saw the top three drivers pretty much on their own, and then the mid-pack from there on was absolutely minute in gaps. It was so competitive, and I think we can have that today in qualifying. It was actually a little bit closer to the McLarens, or closer together a little bit later on into the session as well. So a little mistake today can be a big problem for tomorrow when you want to start the race in the highest possible place on the grid. Bortoletto looking to try and make a Q3 appearance to try and fight for his first points in Formula 1 tomorrow, which would be a brilliant achievement if they could. But yeah, very quick relative to their experienced teammate. Bortoletto is going to have a lot of confidence, I am sure. Hadjar, not so much confidence. Colapinto did manage to get some somewhat competitive running and a contract extension for this weekend, so they will be a little bit happier that they're finding a bit more pace now. They got their best result for Alpine last time around in Canada, as Gasly had quite a few problems. 15th for Gasly, 13th for Colapinto. In qualifying, is a different story. Gasly, I think, last place in the end, and Colapinto was a fair few positions ahead. So they did a brilliant job there. Still, the Alpine needs a little bit more race pace before it can be truly competitive. 5 minutes until qualifying starts. We'll see if the McLarens can hold out, or if Verstappen can do something about the Red Bull Ring. The team's home Grand Prix. They've always done very well around this circuit. 5 wins for Max Verstappen. I don't think Daniel Ricciardo got any victories. And we saw the circuit come back in 2014 from a big break in the early 2000s. So I don't know if Sebastian Vettel won any with Red Bull at all either. I'm going to have a quick look at the Austrian Grand Prix as we have a bit of time before the session, before the qualifying lap times start to come along. I know Mercedes will have had a few wins around here as well in recent times. Of course, last year George Russell took that victory after the big crash between Max Verstappen and Lando Norris in the final stages of the race. Max Verstappen won in 2023. It was Charles Leclerc in 2022, as they also fought for victory in 2019. Max Verstappen won in 21, Valtteri Bottas in 2020, it's Verstappen in 2019, 18 as well, Bottas 2017, Hamilton 2016, Rosberg 2015 and 14. So Mercedes have had quite a few wins. Hamilton taking 1 victory around this circuit. Well, actually 2 victories, because they won the Styrian Grand Prix. So not the Austrian Grand Prix, but they did win two races around the Red Bull Ring. So a little bit of a weird one right there. But still, a lot of confidence for Max Verstappen. 4 wins around this circuit, looking for the 5th. I do apologise. Need to stand corrected on that one. Then there was a break from 2013 to 2004, so huge gap in between. The last driver before that to win was Michael Schumacher. Twice on the bounce then, David Coulthard, Hakkinen, Irvine, Hakkinen again, and Villeneuve. Then there was a massive break again. And then you go to Nigel Mansell, Prost, Lauda, all the legends of the sport. Not that Villeneuve, Schumacher, Coulthard, Hakkinen and Irvine weren't legends. A different generation, that's for sure. looking at engine manufacturers, actually, the most wins around this circuit: Mercedes 9, Ferrari 7. We've got Renault with 3. We've also got Ford with 10, and Ford will be coming back to Formula 1 kind of next year, effectively, and a little bit of a joint partnership with Red Bull. So that's going to be a very, very interesting one, I'm sure. Ford Cosworth engine. Just looking at the little stats before we get the session underway here. As a constructor, Ferrari have the most with 7. McLaren and Mercedes joint with 6. It's Red Bull on 4. Williams on 3 and Renault in 2. For 2 wins. I'm not going to go into that anymore. We're just going to let that one be for now. And we'll see what can happen. Can George Russell get 2 victories on the bounce? Could maybe Max Verstappen come back to the top here in Austria? Could we see Charles Leclerc repeat a victory? Could we see Hamilton get their 2nd victory around this circuit? As they got the controversial one in 2016 with Nico Rosberg, who was looking for their 3rd victory in a row, which didn't happen in the end. The drivers getting ready to leave. And we'll see what they can do in a short period of time. Alrighty, we'll see what we can do. Who can, well, get themselves into the top 10 or not? That's the question. An incredibly competitive field in qualifying spec. The gaps were effectively minute. We had a few drivers in practice match their times. No margins at all to split them. We'll see how that can take us into this session. They're predicting that it's going to be less than a second, splitting the whole field. So this one could be pretty brutal. And the session should start around about now, I'm hoping. I would love to see the clock start running down. Obviously waiting for a few sync delays, and then we'll be ready to go. They're all in the garage waiting for the green light. And the cars are being now lowered by a few teams. It'll actually start. Okay, I see. No. So it's delayed. I'm not entirely sure why it's delayed, but it's delayed. So it will actually be starting at 4:05 local time. I completely missed that. I do apologise. Maybe that's due to something that happened earlier on with a different category. Maybe there was dirt on the track, something. Something like that. Just going to check the weather of the circuit tomorrow. it's going to be absolutely clear. Monday, though, we'll have some rain. So we're 1 day out from the rain in the end, which is, depending on who you ask, a bit of a shame. Spectators, brilliant. Drivers, like Alonso, Hamilton, Verstappen, they would be quite pleased with that one, I'm sure. Russell, Norris can be good in the rain as well, but they've also had some pretty terrible races in the rainy conditions. So that one's a little bit of a difficult one to judge. Here we go. A couple of seconds and then we will be going. And it's the green light. Lovely stuff to see. And the cars will be leaving the garage. We'll see who comes out first. Don't quite see who that one is in the end of the pit lane. The green flag is out. They're just taking their time. Looks like Albon and Sainz are the ones to lead. And we'll see the Williams cars set the laps first. They've had a pretty tough time in FP3 earlier on today, so hopefully they've figured out their troubles, but they've also not had as much pace as they had at the beginning of this season either, so they've got a few answers to find. The questions that they have, Isaac Hadjar in the same boat as they had a last place finish in the FP3 session and a spin as well, so really on the back foot there after that one. Sorry, just trying to sync a few things up and then we'll be ready to go. 15 minutes on the clock and the cars are setting their first laps of the session and we'll see what they can all do. Everything is pretty much synced where it should be, more or less, just by a couple of seconds maybe out here and there. but we currently have Lance Stroll going purple in the first sector, as Albon will set the lap first, but looking as if the Aston Martin will go faster. There's Alex Albon with a 6.015, not the most competitive lap, but still a banker. And there is Lance Stroll, who actually ended up going slower by a very small margin, despite going purple on the first and final sector. The gaps weren't that big, to be fair, in the first sector, so nothing really to talk about too much. It's Carlos Sainz, the P3, but behind Lance Stroll. Esteban Ocon goes to the top of the times, but it's Oliver Behrman who goes at the back. So the two Haas drivers split by a second in the early stages of Q1. Oliver Behrman has had some problems in qualifying in the recent races, or throughout the 25 season, I should say. So they definitely have got to try and figure a few things out. Esteban Ocon hasn't had so many issues in the qualifying sessions and therefore scored some very good points in the race. Definitely being the top driver so far, but also not the rookie, so expected to be the driver that is ahead. Ocon is no slouch at all. Take away some of his maybe clumsy aggression, and he is one of the best drivers on the grid. Alex Albon still holding that P2 spot, but the McLarens are leaving the circuit ready to try and assert their dominance as they finish 1-2 in FP3, and I believe they finished 1-2 in FP2 as well. George Russell was fastest in FP1, but didn't quite have the same pace, beaten by Verstappen and the two Ferraris in the final practice session. Still, as long as they were testing a few things, they might have an opportunity to go a bit quicker again. Verstappen just got a bit of a tow from the Mercedes up in front, goes purple in the first sector. And faster than Lando Norris by a little bit as well. Max knows what he's doing around the team's home circuit. Does get a bit of oversteer into 4 though, and a slight bit deep probably, having to correct the car and adjust accordingly, so they will have lost some speed in that middle sector. Lando Norris expected to go purple in the middle sector as they go. Max goes green, not even getting purple relative to the other cars around them, but that is a massive purple sector there in the middle for Lando Norris. Here we go though, Max Verstappen across the line, DRS for the final time and up to P1. What can Lando Norris do? 28.8 in the middle sector, absolutely monumental. And despite having that disadvantage in the first, they also destroyed the final sector as well. I think Verstappen just missed that final apex a little bit at the end there, and that's what's made the difference. It's Charles Leclerc up to P3, but it's Lando Norris ahead by almost 4.5 tenths of a second. A very slow middle sector for Piastri, who's backed off there. Hamilton goes faster than his teammate by a fair bit as well. Nice and close to Max Verstappen. Seeming competitive this weekend. Could this be somewhat of a turning point for the 7-time champion. Kimi Antonelli currently on a lap, getting close to the gravel as always. As we saw in FP3, almost dropped it. They do like to use a lot of track left and right as much as they can. And with a circuit that the track limits show a very, very immediate gravel trap, you've got to be careful. P4 as they go ahead of Hadjar and split the two Ferraris, both of those guys. Russell across the line. What's it going to be? The P7. George Russell. Not really being where they want to be with that one. It's going to be slightly frustrating for the Brit. Carlos Sainz though, currently crossing the line to P13. A bit of a messy final couple of corners. The first sector was also not too ideal. That's their second run of the session. Alonso just pushes down his Spaniard teammate, but still down towards the back of the order. Piastri yet to set a lap time. They are going out again for another cool down lap, and then they will push on this lap here. Alonso on for a bit of a messy lap right there, as did Carlos Sainz, so they've both got to try to do something a little bit more. 16.4 for Piastri in the first sector, competitive, but not faster than his teammate. It should get him into the top 10 comfortably as long as they continue on their current trajectory with that lap. The middle sector, they'll also gain, but that final sector, they're probably not going to PB, or no, they should PB. They do PB in that middle sector as well, 28.9. They've got the two Alpines ahead and behind them, and you can see the direct comparison. Despite not beating their previous best sector, they've actually destroyed the first sector of the Alpines, either side of them. And they've gone fairly competitive in the middle sector as well, 19.5 in the final sector. And being nice and quick there gets them up to P2 and just ahead as Max Verstappen by a tenth. It's Gasly, P6 with 19.6 in the final sector, and 19.8, 2 tenths down for Colapinto, but up to P12. So the Alpines are fairly competitive this weekend. It's just good if you're an Alpine fan, but not good if you're a Carlos Sainz or Fernando Alonso fan, because they're currently at the back and nowhere to be seen. 2 votes in for the predictions for pole position. Norris and Verstappen 50-50, as they were the ones to be the quickest last time around in 2024. Also some of the quickest to end the race as well. Not quite the way they intended on it though. 6 minutes on the clock. Currently in the drop zone, Bortoleto, Albon, Behrman, Alonso, Sainz. The Williams not having a good weekend at all. Alonso not finding the form that they've had in recent races. And Behrman continuing to struggle in qualifying, where really, before the 25 season, I thought that would have been their strongest part and the race pace wouldn't have been there. But it's the other way round, really. And then Bortoleto, expected to compete for their first points and try and qualify in the top 10, but it's not really been that way so far. Hulkenberg improving nicely and does go up the order. Actually, no. Did they just stay where they were? Yeah, they did stay where they are, but they did improve. Not in the final sector. Bortoleto up to P5. Not beating their first sector time, but they absolutely destroyed the final sector and were pretty good in the middle, ahead of Antonelli. So, my bad, Bortoleto. They are definitely on cue to try and make it to Q3. No pun intended. That's a brilliant lap there for the Brazilian driver. Will they be able to continue the good momentum, though? That's the question. Hard for a rookie to do that sometimes. But I think it's about time for Bortoleto to do something a bit more and get those points in. As Hulkenberg scoring points in the last 2 Grand Prix. Sauber, which is absolutely impressive to say, according to the Sauber team's performance in the 24 season and effectively the 23 season a little bit as well. Albon goes purple in the middle sector though. The Williams are definitely dialing up a little bit more. Carlos Sainz across the line. What's it going to be for the Spaniard? P14 for them. A 28.7 in the middle sector, destroying it for Albon. And P5, they go just ahead of Bortoleto by about a 10.5. And very close to the back of Hamilton, who seems competitive themselves. Leclerc did miss out on FP1. So did Lando Norris though. So really, Leclerc is having a pretty torrid time here around a circuit that they've won at before and have been quick. That's Carlos Sainz who had a massive moment, like Fernando Alonso did at turn 4. That is why they have ended up in P15 and not next to their teammate. Three and a half minutes on the clock, and it's crunch time. Alex Albon says check the floor for damage. Are they going to call that it for qualifying? It's a short circuit, so you can go out very late to get your lap in, but the chances are traffic is going to be brutal, and we could see a few drivers get involved in a few problems. I reckon we're going to see maybe is Lando Norris on a push lap right now or an out lap? They're on around the final corner. They are on an out lap, so I reckon Lando Norris could find himself in a bit of trouble with some traffic if he's not careful. Piastri could find exactly the same scenario as well. All of a sudden they're going to find a lot of cars just piled up at the final part of the circuit going slowly. This is where it gets difficult. This is where the focus is dialed in. Esteban Ocon begins their lap and looks to try and get themselves into the next part of qualifying. Hulkenberg currently in the drop zone, followed by Ocon themselves. Stroll, Behrman and Alonso, the 2 Aston Martins who've been scoring points recently quite nicely. Down the order, absolutely outrageous. I say that. Stroll has been last on a few occasions, but did score points earlier on in the season. Purple in the middle sector for Lando Norris, who does have a few cars up ahead of them, but they should be alright, and they will get away with it nice and clearly. A few other drivers, though, we're waiting to see if things go a little bit pear-shaped. There's Lando Norris going across the line, and they don't improve on their previous best. That is going to be it for the Brit, though. It's Lawson up to P3, and the lap times are going to come pouring in. No one is safe here in Spielberg. It's Ocon across the line. What are they going to do? They go up to P13, and they get themselves in the top 10 or top 15 for now to get to Q2. They push down. Oh, they push down Carlos Sainz, and Carlos Sainz in the pit lane is not going to be able to complete this one. It's Hulkenberg, who's also probably going to be out, or they will get another lap in. Actually, it's Carlos Sainz who does leave the pit lane again and will be out on track, so never mind. It's not all over. I forgot the time and I forgot what I just said, how the circuit is so short. It can all happen here. We've got Alonso improving massively here, currently last place out of all of the runners. Is that Behrman up the order as they've just gone to P8? There's Lance Stroll to P12. Alonso, final corner. What's it going to be for the old reliable veteran of the sport? P8 as a brilliant job and pushing them all the way up. Ocon now back into the drop zone, and that is going to be probably it for Esteban Ocon. Sonoda at risk of being knocked out. Colapinto, Sainz and Hulkenberg all at risk at this point. Russell as well has to get a clean lap, otherwise they're going to be done. They begin their final lap of the session. They've got to hope that they don't get blocked, otherwise they're in big trouble. First sector, purple for Antonelli. So that Mercedes is very quick, as it seems right now, What are we going to see, though? A few more cars crossing the line. A few cars going into the pit lane as well. Gasly across the line to P4. And once again, impressing in the Alpine car. It's going to be Colapinto up to P12. Brilliant job for Colapinto. Here goes Piastri, Leclerc, final corner. They're going into the pit lane. Hadjar now. Hadjar is currently very close to the drop zone, but they go to P5. Russell still looking to improve, but they're not looking that competitive right now. It's a little bit of a risk here in the final sector. Bortoleto to P8, solidifying their position. Antonelli, who went purple in the first sector, only 10th in the end, which is a bit of a worry. George Russell not improving in the middle. They go just behind their teammate. Is that going to be safe? It should be safe. All the other cars have set their laps, and they are very lucky to get that one done. It's Carlos Sainz who gets the final run in this session. Will they get their Williams into the next part? They will not. They will not improve. They improve in the first sector. They're slow in the final and middle sector. And that is terrible. P9 for Albon. P19 for Carlos Sainz. Hulkenberg in P20 with 8th place for Bortoleto. Ocon just misses out as their teammate just gets through. Stroll as well as Alonso manages to get through and sets exactly the same time as Charles Leclerc. The Ferraris not finding the pace here in this part of qualifying, whereas really the Racing Bulls have absolutely turned it on, and so has Pierre Gasly as well. Verstappen, who was expected to compete for pole position here and the victory maybe tomorrow, currently sits P6 with a 5.106, whereas Sonoda is a 5.369, and it's down into P18. That's pretty impressive, though. Looking at the gap, as predicted, qualifying is less than a second apart, and Q2 is less than 6 tenths, just over 6 tenths. Carlos Sainz really not happy with the car, saying that the car is undrivable and that it's broken, something's wrong with it. Well, it would make sense, wouldn't it? You can see as they're going through every single corner, they're just going left and right at the steering wheel, trying their best, but there's nothing you can do. And when the car's doing that, there is definitely something wrong with the car and not the driver. It's just completely wrong. It's not a Formula 1 car at all. High downforce where you should be planted. Not what they're looking for. A 4.672 for Lando Norris to get the fastest lap of the session by almost 3 tenths ahead of Oscar Piastri. Oscar Piastri has gone well here in the past. Lando Norris, however, better, getting a podium in 2020 as well. A second season of Formula 1. Colapinto's going to be happy with that one, staying in with just half a tenth in it. And Lance Stroll, who once again is out. At least Aston Martin have got one driver into the session. Actually, every team that's had a car knocked out has at least one other driver in the session right now, because we've only got one Aston, one Haas, one Red Bull, one Williams, and one Sauber out, and one in. A difficult session from a few, but the McLarens are definitely looking on the up. The Ferraris are confusing, and the Mercedes are confusing. The Racing Bulls are pleasantly surprised. Alright, we wait for Q2 to begin, which is arguably going to be even more competitive now, as the gap between pole and last place is going to be less than a second. Currently, if that was the Q2 session, we would have had Russell, Leclerc, Alonso, Behrman and Colapinto knocked out. And for the last year and last race winner, that's not ideal for George Russell. Charles Leclerc not having a good time at all either. Hamilton's going to be happy that they're ahead of their teammate, but a bit disappointed that they weren't living up to the FP3 pace. Here we go for Q2. The cars leave the circuit and get ready to go again. It's Leclerc first out. "30 minutes on the clock in the 15-minute session, shorter than Q1, but a little bit longer than the Q3 session that we're about to experience in a few moments' time." Charles Leclerc, the previous winner. I'm not entirely sure if they had a previous pole position around here. I'd assume so, considering they are Charles Leclerc after all. They have had a fair few pole positions in their time. They may have even had pole position in 2019. I'm not entirely sure. It could be possible. Purple in the first sector for Hamilton as they take it away from their teammate, but they didn't beat them in the middle sector, where there are a few more corners. So really, you should be gaining more time in that middle sector. Charles Leclerc should be ahead of their teammate as long as they keep it tidy in the final, which it looks like it is. You can see actually though, 2/10 gained in that middle sector. Absolutely huge, but they've lost it all in the middle sector. And then the final sector a bit slower from Hamilton. So Hamilton's had a messy middle sector, but a monster first sector. 2/10 disadvantage by the end of that one. 6/10 for Albon, but at least they've got the lap done. So really they are actually, well, pretty much definitely stating that there was something wrong with Carlos Sainz's car. They think that it was completely broken. We've now got 4 votes in the chat here. We've got Norris, 25% chance. 2 votes, or 1 vote, sorry, of getting pole position. Piastri, 1 vote, 25% chance, but 2 votes for Max Verstappen, 50. Considering the the Q1 times that we've just gone through, that is a bold statement to assume that Max Verstappen is going to be the one to take that pole position. I don't hate it. It's definitely not a bad shout at all. But it's not the safer shout, at least from the data that we've seen. Lots of cars leaving the pit lane now, getting ready for their qualifying lap, their first of Q2. Where for many cars, this is crunch time. This is where it may end for them. So they have to push with everything they've got. You can't say for Q3, like McLaren, like Verstappen, like maybe a bit Mercedes and Ferrari, although those guys have to be careful because they've had a few mistakes here and there. Less than 10 minutes now. Unless laps set on the circuit, we've got all the runners that have set laps so far in the pit lane. And we're still waiting for a few to set their first laps. We've got Hadjar who's set their first sector. Then it's Lawson. So we're watching for the two Racing Bulls who had a brilliant Q1. Right there, Hadjar last and spinning an FP3 to then go up the order towards the front in the Q1 session and show that confidence. Hadjar's just had such a good season and they're really bringing this momentum throughout every single race weekend that they're doing. They're now bringing the momentum into the final sector as they go purple in the middle ahead of anyone else. Final corner they go to, and it's going to be a 10th behind Leclerc, so they've missed out elsewhere. It's Liam Lawson though who has absolutely destroyed it in the middle sector now ahead of their teammate. The final sector's coming up. The final corner looked a little bit slower, but it's still a rapid lap, 2/10 ahead of anyone else as they beat Leclerc to it. That is brilliant stuff there for Liam Lawson, who's effectively fighting for a seat at this point. You've got Isaac Hadjar, the rookie. You've got Liam Lawson, who hasn't done a full season yet, but they've basically done 2 half seasons in Formula 1. Well, they've done about just over half a season in Formula 1, effectively, I should say. And they don't really seem to have the upper hand, which isn't what people expect. You've got to remember, though, this is their first full season. But Liam Lawson was such hot property, and they've lost all of their kind of appeal, and they're only losing more every time they get beaten by Isaac Hadjar. For now, it's a little bit different. And now we've got the old Red Bull pairing of Verstappen and Lawson topping the times, now in different teams, as it's 1.5 tenths advantage that Verstappen has, which isn't that much considering it's a Red Bull and a Racing Bull. We've got Russell who's going quickly, but it's Piastri who's going quickest and going purple in the first 2 sectors. There we go with Russell to P3, behind Liam Lawson, just ahead of Charles Leclerc. Piastri across the line out the final corner first of all, though. And then we'll see what they can do in the final sector. It is going to be purple in the final sector, but their middle sector's beaten by Lando Norris, as that is a 28.694, followed by a 28.623. So marginal stuff here between the two McLarens. The final corner's upon Lando Norris, and it is across the line to P1, 1.5 tenths ahead of everyone. 2 purple sectors to boast about. That first sector is still Piastri's. It's Leclerc who's come out again and set another lap. That's the P3 to push Verstappen down, and Hamilton follows him very, very closely on the time. 0.018 seconds away from his teammate. Not on track, but on the timing sheet. Just wanted to clarify that one there, so no one got confused. Otherwise that would have been a bit of an awkward one, wouldn't it? Max Verstappen says he's got absolutely no grip wherever the car is undrivable. A little bit like Carlos Sainz said earlier on, just undrivable. They have got their car into Q2 at least. But you can see turn 4 seems to be low grip. I wonder if the circuit is just low grip and the cars are struggling with that a little bit, because turn 4, a lot of drivers doing exactly the same thing. That's Lewis Hamilton, I think, finishing their lap or just starting it and driving straight into the grass without really choosing to avoid it, which is interesting. They'd have lost a lot of time for that. Not really sure why they did it. So, that's interesting. Got a red flag? Okay, alright, I see. So, Lewis Hamilton has, as I just said, driven over that grass. That's ended up causing a spark to go on the grass, and it's lit the tracker light. The grass is currently on fire, and they're going to have to try and extinguish that once the cars are in. And it's safe to go. And because it's qualifying, the timer does pause. We've got 5.5 minutes on the clock. So it is going to be a mad rush out, I'm sure, to try and get 2 laps. Some drivers might end up just waiting for one final run in qualifying here. We'll see how it goes. Just to let you know what's going on, it is a red flag due to the grass catching on fire. As Lewis Hamilton drove over the grass, the sparks from underneath the car ended up catching alight with the dry grass because of the temperature being so hot. Earlier on, it was about 21 degrees. Now it's 27 local time. Absolutely boiling in Austria. Really, really hot day. Difficult to deal with. Especially if you're sat in a car as a driver. When you're out on track, it's brutal. If you're in the garage and you've got some cool fans on you, that's great, but other than that, it's pretty tough to deal with. Verstappen complaining about some grip issues earlier on. High speed, low speed and medium speed corners everywhere they're complaining about. You can see a couple of moments where they were wrestling at the wheel, but for the most of the lap it seemed to be pretty tidy. Just the pace is lost elsewhere. 7 tenths away from the cars that he's trying to compete for with pole position. So we've had a circuit of Canada, a very smooth circuit, and a cool temperature. We've now gone to 27 degrees air temperature, 46 track temperature, and a fairly bumpy circuit. So you can see Mercedes have really struggled quite badly. Isaac Hajar falls asleep in the cockpit. They wake up. I think they're probably just focusing more on the lap, really. We've got the green flag. And we'll be restarting in about 2 minutes' time. Still yet to do Q3. This is Q2. Once again, a reminder, we're currently stationary due to the red flag that has just gone away as the circuit lit a light due to the grass catching fire. Hopefully that is the last of it and we can get some clean running all the way to the end. Lando Norris tops the times, a 4.410. It's Oscar Piastri, who's a tenth and a half away from his teammate. Then we have Charles Leclerc, Hamilton, Verstappen, Lawson, Russell, Hadjar, Antonelli, Gasly, Albon, Behrman, Alonso, Bortoleto, and Colin Pinto. Alrighty, in a few moments' time we should get that green flag and go racing once again for the qualifying session to see who can go fastest. Who's going to be the star of the show today? Who's going to have a few struggles? Now, we see the green flag, but no one is on their way out. As I expected, it's either we're gonna have cars trying to do 2 laps, or we're gonna have a few cars that are waiting to get a lap later on in the session, and we see basically no one leaving immediately. A few teams, drivers, will change their mind and go out because they realise that the track is so not busy, but for the most part, we're not going to see any running. We're currently just waiting, and it's Max Verstappen's tyres being pulled off the car. They'll get that car lowered down, and they wait to leave the garage at the perfect time. The very second that they need to be out on track, they will do it. There is Max Verstappen leaving the pit lane and getting ready to go. Which could be a lap, a cooldown lap, and then another lap, or they could do a pit stop in the middle of the session. We don't know. They all queue up at the end of the pit lane now and see what they can do. Actually, Verstappen maybe just got blocked by a few cars and he's ended up in the traffic jam. A little bit further up front of the traffic jam, but now everybody's pretty much left the pit lane. Hadjar absolutely chilling ahead with no one in front for now. And is loving that. But, of course, it's a short lap, so you can complete it very quickly. And we're still probably going to have a few cars waiting in the queue of traffic to leave, getting ready to go. And that's going to make it very difficult for Hadjar to complete their full lap. We've just had Verstappen, who has waited a very long time until they've actually left the pit lane to get ahead. To, allow Bortoleto to get ahead of them so they don't get blocked, but they've ended up delaying a lot of other cars like Norris and Piastri. Lawson delayed himself as Verstappen did. So they're all trying to do their own thing here. We've got Hadjar, who is coming through into the first corner now, and they will not be blocked by George Russell on the pit lane exit. It'll be absolutely fine, no problem at all. Later on in the lap, they might have a few issues, but that'll probably be in the final sector, if at all. Currently, Bortoleto, as expected, to try and fight for Q3 this weekend, hasn't had the easiest time in 2025, but this is their strongest time, their strongest weekend it appears to be, that they can do something about it. They're currently going green. It's Behrman and Hadjar, though, who will be setting their laps beforehand. Hadjar goes around Alonso. They've made their way around a few other bits of traffic, and they go around the final corner. Hadjar across the line. P6 they improve, and it's Behrman to P8. That may not be enough. They're going to have to go again at some point, I'm sure. Pierre Gasly looking to improve, but it's a brilliant lap from Bortoleto to P3. Is that going to put them safely into Q3? I'm not entirely convinced, but it's their only option as we've got less than a minute on the clock. Piastri's improving. Verstappen up to P3. Piastri purple in the first sector. It's Lando Norris who's also improving and going across the line to P2. They improved only in the first sector, so didn't actually get a better lap time in the end. Kimi Antonelli and George Russell need to do something about their qualifying, otherwise they're going to be out at their Team Principal's home Grand Prix. It's a little bit crunch time for a few drivers now. Colapinto possibly going to be knocked out unless they get the lap done, or they will start another lap. Luckily, Alonso improving. Albon is not improving, or they're going on the final lap as well. Gasly doing the same, improving the first sector. Alonso to P8. Is that going to put them safely into it? I don't know. They knocked down Hadjar and Behrman, who could find their way out. Behrman is possibly going to be out of qualifying as Antonelli goes to P8. The rookie pushes his rookie rival out from last year teammate. It's Russell across the line. It's Russell to P5. It's Alonso now possibly being knocked out. We're getting improvements from Albon, Gasly, Colapinto. Nothing from Hadjar and Behrman, as they will be out of qualifying here in Austria. That is Leclerc up to P3 ahead of Verstappen, but we're really looking about the bottom three. Gasly will cross the line first out of all of them, then Colapinto, then Albon. Gasly, what's it going to be for the Frenchman? It's going to be a P6 and pushing out Alonso. Is Colapinto going to find a way to get ahead of Antonelli? No, they will not. They'll push down Behrman. It's Albon, who's the only one who can compete here. Oh, and they've just missed out as well. P12 for Alex Albon. Fernando Alonso lucky to stay ahead, but still out of the session. And Antonelli is going to be thanking a lot of people about that one. Just getting in to the third part of qualifying. And although Mercedes are going to be happy that they're released through. They're not going to be happy with how close it was. Liam Lawson, the only racing bull into the session, really came alive here in qualifying. Both racing bulls have effectively come alive, but Lawson a bit more. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri comfortably top of the times. Leclerc and Verstappen were trading, as they've done many times around here in Austria. Bortoleto, though, with a great performance along with Gasly, P5 and 6 for them. Russell finding something out of it. Hamilton has had the confidence throughout the weekend, it seemed, and had the pace in Q1, but hasn't quite dialed it in as much as Charles Leclerc has. P8 for Hamilton. The margins are actually incredibly small, however, so you can't really complain too much of Hamilton there. I'm sure Hamilton isn't going to be too disappointed relative to the gap, but the position-wise, definitely a little bit difficult. That's just the way it is, though, when you get to qualifying. Surprisingly, we are still a second away, effectively, 9/10, almost a second, in qualifying from each other. So I was surprised at that from Behrman. But it's the way it goes. It is the way it goes indeed. From P1 to P10, though, the gap 0.6 of a second. Formula 1 in 2025 relative to something like 2015. Absolutely incredible. The closeness that we have compared to what we had before. We used to see Lewis Hamilton getting pole by 0.3 of a second and just leaving everybody in the dust. Now it's a different era. Bortoleto, they're just saying how they completed that lap without any aerodynamic aid to a tow from a car ahead. They've set this lap all on their own accord, which is absolutely brilliant. Very close to the track limits at turn 7 on entry. Really on the exit of turn 6. Final sector. We'll see what they can do. Looking a lot tidier, a lot more confident in the final sector, especially to the Williams of Carlos Sainz. That is a brilliant lap there. For Bortoleto, we see Alonso, Albon, Hadjar, Colapinto and Behrman leave us in the second part of qualifying. We see in the top 10, Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, Charles Leclerc, Verstappen, Bortoleto, Gasly, Russell, Hamilton, Lawson and Antonelli. Now we're going to have a quick look at the predictions that we've got in the chat right now before we go into Q3. Lando Norris, 7 votes have come in now. Lando Norris 29% chance, 29% chance for Piastri, 43% chance vote here for Verstappen. It's all changing a little bit. A vote extra for Norris and Piastri, and maybe another vote for Verstappen if that's correct. I'm not entirely sure. No one else thinking that somebody else can get the pole position. It's all predictions for Verstappen, Piastri and Norris. Well, Leclerc's there. He could do something. Originally, I thought maybe George Russell would have a go, but they've really not been able to do much with the conditions that the car is having to drive in right now. It's the way it goes, I guess. It is the way it goes. Some work being done on Bortoletto's car here before they go out for their final session. of qualifying on Saturday. Is it their best starting position, P12? Alex Jakes just said. I think that's probably about right. And this is definitely guaranteed their best starting position, whether they do anything here in qualifying or not. But currently sitting P5. Wow, if they can get a Sauber into the top 5 when it comes to the final part of qualifying, that will be a hell of an effort. Incredible. On the other hand, Colapinto, P14, Gasly, P6. That's a big change. A big gap. Not what you want to have, but it's what they've got. And here we go. Qualifying 3 is starting, has started. And we'll finish in just over 10 minutes time, the 12-minute session. A shorter one, a more manic one, but with less cars out on track, you have a little bit more to play with on your out laps, your warm-up laps, etc. You also end up with the fastest cars of the weekend and can lose out a lot if you are not careful. But also the benefit of being at Austria is because the circuit is so short, the lap time is so quick, that you can actually get quite a few lap times or laps in. So you have a few opportunities for a few mistakes if you dare. Not that you want to be doing that kind of thing, sure. You've got to make sure that you stay away from any gravel traps, any track limits, which aren't really so easy to extend. Track limits were a problem in the past. For a few seasons, we saw quite a few lap times be deleted. We didn't know who was where in qualifying. They decided to fix that by making the curbs basically just as wide as the cars, maybe a little bit less wide than the cars. So if the cars do extend, they just go straight into the gravel trap, and that is it. We finally have some tracks out on we finally have some cars out on track, and we're ready to go. Gasly with a brilliant performance so far in that Alpine. Antonelli trying to find something that they haven't really been able to find so far in this session. And it's Piastri right behind them, then Norris, then Verstappen, who has been struggling with the car, according to their radio messages, but still setting some decent lap times nevertheless. Not where they want to be though relative to the McLarens. 2 minutes on the clock, not long to go at all. A banker lap that was almost perfect for Lando Norris has given them a lot of confidence. Will they be able to hold on to it? I don't quite know. They weren't happy with the lap. And it was said that it wasn't a very animated lap. They didn't look like they were pushing the limits. But maybe they were just on the limit of the car, not pushing it any further. There's a 2-minute warning. We're yet to see Liam Lawson set a lap time here. They've set a lap time, but not a timed qualifying run. Gasly P9, Bortoleto P8, Antonelli, Verstappen, Russell, Hamilton, Piastri, Leclerc and Lando Norris on top of the times. And currently P1 to P5 is half a second away. P1 to P4 is 3.5 tenths away. The gaps in the middle of the field are a bit closer than the ones at the front and the back. But will they close up? Max Verstappen is going to try and do such a thing, as they're currently P6 and starting their final run. What can the Dutchman do? Can they try and find another pole position here, as they did last year in 2024? P6 for now. Turn 3, a little bit slower than the current pole time, so they're not looking for pole anymore. Surely you can't bring that time back in the middle and final sector. Surely you can't. Their best bet is to try and get within the top 3. The front row may be possible at this point. It's purple in the first sector for Charles Leclerc, putting pressure on the McLarens. All of a sudden, Lando Norris and Piastri have to make sure they do something about it. That's a yellow. That's in the final corner, and that's going to be Gasly, who's going to possibly make it that Piastri has to back off. I'm not entirely sure Piastri will be good with that. No, 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 no. Max Verstappen has been forced to back off, I think because of the yellow flag in the final sector, and that's going to be their lap done. They will be done with qualifying. P7 now as they drop down. Lawson improving. Russell across the line here. What can they do? Oh, and they stay P5. They stay P5, but it's Leclerc, who went purple earlier on. It's been taken away. They stay P2, and they will not be able to improve in the end. Lando Norris purple in the first and second sector. Piastri not improving, going very slowly. It's all going to be Lando Norris today. It's pole position improved. A 3.971 for Lando Norris. And it doesn't look like anyone's going to be able to compete with that one. We see Bortoleto improving. We see Bortoleto coming to the final couple of corners. This is the only driver that can compete here in qualifying. Would they go for pole? No. But they're going to try and get themselves ahead of Antonelli. And if they found even more time, maybe ahead of Verstappen. Antonelli is beaten. That's Bortoleto starting a career best 8th place. Gasly not having the Q3 that they wanted. But Bortoleto definitely. Verstappen backing off at the final stages due to the yellow flags. And it's Lawson in P6, it's Russell in P5, it's Hamilton, Piastri, Leclerc, Norris. But I do wonder what happened to Gasly there, because that's what caused Verstappen to be forced to back off on their lap. Maybe Verstappen would have had a go at P3. Into the gravel at the final corner for Pierre Gasly, causing them to spin. Many cars have done that so far. Hajar and Alonso in practice yesterday and today. And they stay out the wall. But a really, really frustrating moment for Max Verstappen because of that one. It's going to be a difficult race on Sunday. Liam Lawson have a brilliant performance. They're starting in a healthy 6th place. Well, they're suggesting that he's actually bailed out of the lap, Max Verstappen. and then wanted to start again, but then saw the yellow flag. So maybe that's actually on their own accord. So I'm not entirely sure what happened there with Verstappen, but the lap is done. Is Lando Norris on pole position with a 1:03.971, 5/10, half a second ahead of Charles Leclerc, showing the front row. It's then Piastri, Hamilton, Russell, Lawson, Verstappen, Bortoleto, Antonelli, and Gasly. That is absolutely brilliant from Bortoleto. I can't wait to see how the race is going to go tomorrow, and I'm sure you can't either. Thank you very much for watching. It's been a pleasure. The predictions were not correct for Verstappen taking pole, but for Norris it was correct. We'll see you very, very soon for more LSI. We'll see you later on for the LSI Saturday tier Summer Season Championship. That's going to be an awesome race, also at Austria. But other than that, enjoy the race tomorrow, and we'll see you for the next Silverstone live stream for the Watchalongs. Have a good one. Bye-bye.